Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Siobhan Copland. She is a matchmaker for over 10 years. She is the CEO of two matchmaking businesses, CupidInTheCity.com and Project143.co, which is a UK-based company. Siobhan, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much for the kind introduction. Yeah, I'm very well. Lovely to see you, Will.
No, it's my pleasure. So, Siobhan, tell us a little bit about yourself. What was that journey like to get here to today with your two companies of matchmaking abilities? So, what was that journey like?
Sure. So it's funny because I often think with a lot of things in life, I've fallen into things. And I feel like I did fall into matchmaking. I didn't sort of leave school and think, I'm going to become a matchmaker. I mean, who does? It's not even like, it's not even a profession that comes up on any kind of list when you're filling in a form, right?
Right.
Uh, I didn't even know that it existed. But I've always been quite entrepreneurial, and I knew deep down that I always wanted to do something for myself. I didn't know what that would be, but as with most people, before they become an entrepreneur, you get a job. And I usually got very bored very quickly.
Ah, okay.
So within a year of working somewhere, I would usually quit or find a way to get sacked. um, so what I was working in an office job, and at the same time, I was doing some lifestyle journalism for an online magazine. And I was also asked whether I'd like to help a comedian be his PA and help him run comedy nights. And I'm very much a yes person. I'm always up for trying new challenges and things. Sort of don't knock it till you try it. So I gave that a go. And he was the one who noticed that most of the people that were coming to these comedy nights, it was usually the same faces you'd see most weeks, a few
Right.
extras would come in. But he was the one that noticed most people there were single, and they were all dressed up and, making the effort, hoping while you're having a little laugh that you might catch somebody's eye. But the men and women were not really approaching each other in that setting. So he suggested, because we were already doing a dating segment as part of the comedy show, so we would like pick someone from the audience, and then I would take them around the room, and they'd have to tell me 3 people in the room that they found attractive. And then I would invite those 3 people up to the front, and the audience would then pick who they went on a date with, and we'd pay for them to go out for a date.
Wow.
So that was a really fun segment, popular segment in the show. But then his suggestion to me was that I promote a singles night. So we, at the same venue, we would put on a speed dating night.
Right.
And so I thought, why not? And the first event, it was so interesting to see the data that comes back from something like that, because you get them to fill in the form, and you find out about what they do for work, what their interests are, what they say their values are. These were questions that I felt were important, even to ask for something like speed dating, which is just meant to be quite fun and quick and not particularly deep. But I've always been a curious person, and I've always wanted to ask those deeper questions about people. So that was kind of how I set it up. And then when I got the matches back, it was kind of like comparing the data of, oh, that's interesting. So he likes her, and they've actually got the same values, and, they've got some of the same interests, they have a similar upbringing. And I became very curious about that.
Yeah.
So I kept doing the events, but then I got made redundant from the day job. And it was the directors of that company that I never forget. They said to me, Siobhan, do yourself a favor and don't go and get another job. And I went, what do you mean you're firing me? Like, what am I supposed to do? And Jerry, who's, a great guy, he said to me, you've got a business. Go and do that.
Mm,
And that's when it occurred to me that maybe I had something that I could actually make some kind of living from.
right.
Um, and then I actually came across the show, The Millionaire Matchmaker.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
saw that show. Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
And that just opened my eyes to another level of introducing people like, oh, there are people that actually do set people up for a living and they're like, really successful at it. And this is actually really exciting. So I then put it out to the network and said, would anyone be interested in me just like selling you? And so, yeah, nearly everyone replied and was like, yeah, I'd love you to. So I just started doing it, charging very minimal at the start. But the first person who allowed me to take them on as a client, they got engaged within 6 months. And I was just so thrilled.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought, oh, maybe I do have a knack for this. I
Yeah.
thought, first one, you think maybe it is a fluke. But then these things kept happening. People telling me, oh, we're having a baby. And I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And it just become an absolute obsession of mine from
So
that
you
point on.
had a hidden talent that you didn't know you had.
Yeah, I've always loved connecting people. I'm the sort
Right.
of person who's like, oh, you're looking for a job. Oh, I know someone in this thing, and they're looking, or you're looking for a flatmate. Oh, you do really well. Like you could probably live with this person. Or
Right.
I've always been a connector, but I didn't connect the dots that connecting people for
Yeah.
love, something.
Until your boss Jerry said, "Hey, you have a business here," and
Yeah,
that was the aha moment. So, and
yeah,
we're talking with Siobhan Copland, and today's topic is about matchmaking, especially in today's society. So, Siobhan, now this is late 2023, and I look at other podcasts, I read articles about dating. Has your job or your matchmaking skills have they been put to the test with maybe whether it's a man or a woman and their standards might be too high or too low or not at all? Especially what I've been reading about, especially young women, they're looking for a certain type of man, height, six figures. So I can see the smile on your face. So tell me more about that. Are some people? I don't want to just put it all on women because I know guys could be a little crazy too. Are some people's standards just a little bit out there?
so I think that
I,
yes.
I know I can't stump you, so go ahead. I know that. You know I know you have an
No, no,
answer.
honestly, there's nothing you could tell me that could really shock me, to be honest. I'm
Right.
very, open-minded in that sense. But I think that yes, to a degree, but I do think that sometimes these standards are actually more to do with someone's almost attachment style.
Mm,
What I mean by that is someone who is of a secure kind of attachment style can usually kind of form relationships quite easily. They can express themselves quite easily. They can be open. And I find when people start making these um, what they consider standards and they don't want to settle, what it actually is it's an avoidant tactic. It's a wall that they're putting up because
okay.
if they create this sort of almost impossible kind of standard of what they're willing to even consider to get to know someone, and then they've got that excuse, that convenient excuse that I haven't found anyone because no one lives up to my standards. But really deep down what it is it's a lot of hurt and insecurity underneath that. And if you really get under the layers, just the other day I was with a woman, and her surface was very, she's a shrewd businesswoman, she's successful, she's driven, but behind it was actually quite a tragic story
Mm,
of grief and loss and heartbreak and being let down, and then having to become this fiercely independent woman that gives off this impression that you just can't mess with her. But actually, deep down, what I was able to find was her softness, which was deep down a really feminine, soft woman with so much love and such a generous heart and a generous nature that was terrified of being taken advantage of.
Right.
And it's almost like if you find someone who's really rich and really strong and tall and stuff, it gives you this full sense of security that you're going to finally be protected and provided for.
Yeah.
But the reality is, this isn't Disney. Because that guy turns up and he's 6 foot and he's rich and he's in his castle, it doesn't mean he's going to come and rescue you and actually make all your dreams come true. You
Right.
know,
That's the outside, but it's the
yeah,
inside of how he's going to treat you, how he's going to talk to you, how he's going to behave with, in certain situations. So, okay. So, wow. So that's fascinating because, we always think that women are just, making their standards too high, but I didn't think of the, hey, she's been hurt 50 times or 5 times, and now she thinks all guys suck. But as men, how do you navigate through that then? Because if a woman's putting up a wall and
mm,
he is the nice guy, but he gets placed in the friend zone,
yeah,
but he pretty much checks all the boxes except maybe the bad boy image.
right.
Uh, how does a guy navigate through that again? Because if you're in that situation as a guy, you're like, wow, I think I know I check all the boxes, but
Okay, so how you navigate that being the nice guy when you're not the bad boy, and I think that what
can
women
before I'm sorry, Siobhan, before we continue with that,
yeah,
is it possible that you can change or offer an opinion to the guy that, hey, have your boundaries, have your standards, not be an
yeah.
asshole, but can they change their attitude somewhat to not be soft or um, a pushover and end up in the friend zone? Does that make sense? Did I make sense at all?
Yeah, okay. So sorry, just so I understand your question, just from your initial what we were saying, can you just rephrase that initial question that you were
All
asking?
right.
Sorry.
So with women, let me try to remember how I said it. If women are setting the bar high, right? But all of a sudden they meet a guy that could check all the boxes, but he's not the bad boy. He's a gentleman. He opens doors. He brings flowers, things like that. But she doesn't see him. He's nice, but I think he's a friend zone guy. Oh, but that guy who has tattoos and he's a happy go lucky guy. He doesn't care about life. He's just in and out. But she finds that exciting. Can the guy that's ended up in the friend zone
Mm.
somewhat change to get out of the friend zone? Again, did my question make sense at
Absolutely.
all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the nice guy can always get out of the friend zone. My partner and I were friends for years, actually, before anything romantic happened. Obviously, there's an element of that we were both in some of that time we're in other relationships, But I do see women friend zoning guys a lot who are genuinely that, and when I'm even during the matchmaking consultation, I'm very intuitive. A lot of the time, I will actually pick up that there's already a guy who's like connected to her, you know? And I will question it and I will say, is there a guy in your life right now who is into you and you're not really looking at him that way? And most of the time, yes, there's always a guy
Yeah.
that's there who's willing to do everything for her and she just can't see it. He's like under her nose and she's, oh no, he's just a friend. And I always say, the friendship is the best foundation for a relationship. If you have the privilege of being able to be a friend with someone first, this is a really good foundation, And I think that the fear is that women are kind of scared to, and also men too, to cross over into that new territory because once they do that, if it doesn't work out, they've lost their friend. But I always think it's worth the risk, but you've got to go slow, you know,
Mm.
you've got to go slow. I think if you're the man, you've almost got to say to her, you've got to set those boundaries, right? Because what I find is what a lot of men do is they will sit there and they'll listen to her talking about all these other guys that she's been out with and be that listening ear.
And we all hate that.
And that's what has got to be made clear, right?
Yeah,
You've got to say, you know what? I'll be honest, I don't want to hear about you dating other guys. You know, I think you're a great woman. I like you. I would love even the opportunity for us to maybe see whether there's anything more beyond a friendship. There's no pressure, there's no rush, but I would like us to kind of go on some dates. I would put it out there, you
yeah,
know, and I would say, you know, let's just go on some dates. There's no pressure. We can take things slow. I know that it's not what you're used to because you're used to that initial spark. And this is what happens with women that go after these toxic guys. They are getting the butterflies, yeah, from the first date because this guy is carrying a lot of masculine energy.
right.
And that in itself is a turn on to women, you know, when a guy's very sure of himself and very confident and kind of owns the room. This is what it's power. Women are attracted to power, yeah. But there is also something to be said about quiet confidence, but also if you like a woman that is a friend of yours and you want to focus on her, I would still be taking other women out as well. You know,
Okay.
because I feel like when you're just focused on her, she kind of sees you as a bit of like, the moment she actually sees other women like you, it's funny how women start to see it differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
100%. Yeah.
it's really strange because even with my partner, and he doesn't even know this, but my flatmate that I was with on the night of the Christmas party that him and I started to kind of talk a lot more than we ever had done. He walked in the room and she said, "Who's he? He's hot."
Yeah.
And I went, "Oh, Cole, yeah, I guess he's all right." But you know, in that moment,
I love it. I love that you're so honest, Siobhan. No, that's great. Yeah, he's okay.
but it was almost that moment, right, that she had said something that kind of made me look at him like, Cole, hot. I've never looked at him like that before. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's almost sometimes, as bad as it is, it does take another woman to kind of notice that this is a guy who's, you know, dateable.
Right,
That woman or the friend suddenly feels like you're now less available to her, you know, because I feel like the guy in the friend zone is so available to that woman
right.
that she takes it for granted. So you can't be too available. You've got to kind of set those boundaries. Even if she's calling you up, you're like, yeah, you know what, I got to go. You can't be on the phone too long. You can't
Okay.
kind of let her be like your gay best mate. I had a guy say that to me before when I was single. You know, I didn't realize he liked me. And I remember him telling me, "I'm not your gay best mate. Don't tell me as much as you tell me." Because
Right.
that in itself can kind of ruin some of the attraction as well, you know?
How did you react to that when he said that to you?
I think at the time I was just really quite taken aback because I didn't even think that he liked me in that way, for one. So I mean, he was a complex character, that guy. So I don't know if he was the best example,
Right,
but
right.
um, yeah, it stuck with me though, that advice, and I felt that as women, a lot of the time we do overshare, and we need to just say less.
Right, right, right. Listen, guys are the same. I remember Siobhan, and we talk with Siobhan Copland. Today's topic is about matchmaking, and I remember I was talking to a female friend of mine, and she had mentioned, Siobhan, that sometimes guys tend to just over, uh, for lack of a better phrase, oversay things, and all of a sudden the girl's like, "Boy, this guy gave me his life story in 15
Yeah,
minutes."
yeah.
So, do you talk to? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Especially divorced men have a tendency to really kind of talk about what they've been through and how awful their ex-wife is and how she's made their life hell, and you know, and
Yeah.
it's you've got to avoid those sort of subjects, particularly on the first couple of dates.
Is chivalry dead, or can it still
Oh,
be? Can it make it come back somehow? Because I hear stories that I. Perfect example. A friend of mine
mm,
that I work with, and I remember I opened the door for her, and she goes, "Oh wow, I'm not used to that." Now we're talking of a woman who's in her 50s, has a
Mm.
boyfriend and everything, and she wasn't used to that. Again, I'm gonna say, I know you said no, but is chivalry dead, or can it still somehow make a comeback? Bringing
I would
flowers,
love it.
opening doors,
Yeah.
maybe putting on her jacket.
You see, I
Siobhan,
do
save
actually,
us.
you know what though? I kind of feel sorry for men. You know why? Because I feel that a lot of men would love to be chivalrous,
Mm,
but I'm going to say something controversial here. I feel that feminism has killed it.
right.
And what I mean by that is the wave of feminism that we're in now is almost like the boundaries are so strong, but it's not just boundaries, it's guarded, and it's very
Mm,
easily triggered by something as simple as a man offering, I've seen it, offering his seat on a tube, and a woman taking offense to that. Like, why should I take a seat just because I'm a woman? Like, as if to say I'm lesser than you.
right.
This is what I think there is some confusion. You've got the old school women that are very more traditional values, and then you've got the modern women who a lot of the time are of this current wave of feminism where even a gesture such as a man putting his jacket, it's like, oh, I didn't give you permission to touch my shoulder. I mean, it's honestly, it's very, it's almost like a minefield, the dating way, but because what applies to one woman, it doesn't apply to all.
Right. But then then you have guys thinking, well, can I open the door for her? Is she going to get upset? Is she, so now guys are walking on eggshells because now they're thinking, wow, that last girl that I had didn't want me to do anything for her, open the door or whatever. Now, do I do it for this one?
Right.
A good friend of mine, she's in her 20s, and I always call her old soul because even though she's in her early 20s, she's just a woman that knows what she wants. She has values and all that. And she, like I said, she's a good friend of mine, and we always talk about dating out there. She got upset. I shouldn't say she got upset, but she mentioned to me that on the first date, she went out with this guy, and the guy didn't open the door for her, and it did bother her. And I say, you know what? I think if I was in this situation, I definitely would have done that. I would have opened the door. And she said he did everything else, but for some reason that definitely, I wouldn't say ticked her off, but it made her
You lost
aware.
the brownie point. Yeah. And I think that that's the same with, like, when it comes to the bill coming, and women will happily say, oh yeah, we'll go halves, but if he accepts that offer, he's lost some points, and she may not even go on another date. It's.
Well, Siobhan, I'm one of those guys, again, because I'm older, I have no problem paying on the first date.
Yeah.
That's me. And I think guys in my generation, even younger guys I've seen on the internet, they say, no, you should, if you're asking her out, you should pay.
Mm.
Um, but I think if a guy does accept, I don't blame a woman for like, oh, this guy. I don't think a woman should offer. Maybe on the third
I
or
agree.
fourth date, maybe if
Yeah.
there is a third or fourth date, it's okay. But on the first date, I don't think she needs to make that gesture.
Yeah.
I
And that's
invited you out.
exactly, and that's it. I mean, that's like etiquette, isn't it? And it is that. I
Yeah,
think sometimes people don't actually understand the rules of etiquette. And yeah, it is. I'm of that view that if someone has invited you somewhere, um, particularly in a romantic setting like that, he's picked the restaurant, he's picked where you go, then I might, if I would have picked, I might have picked a cheap place, right? But he's
right,
picked an expensive place. So should I be expected to pay half of this expensive place that he's brought me to, by
right,
invitation? But I think that with friends, it's a bit different. When you go with your girlfriends, we usually either treat each other, or we're happy to sort of split it. But I think,
right.
yeah, the whole thing about dating, you need to remember, is that the man it's a display. It's like in anything in nature. There's these sort of courting rituals that we go through. And part of that sort of ritual is, I'm showing you that I can provide for you. Like, I feel like that is part of it. And if you can't display that as a man, then what are you bringing to the table?
Yeah, no, 100%. So when you start getting clients, whether they're men or women, and you work with both, I'm assuming,
Right.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there something that you look for? Do you give them like a piece of paper and say, okay, this is what you're looking for, or what do you want to look for? Same thing with a man. And again, we talked about standards. If it's a little bit out there, do you make any suggestions? So like, what do you look for in clients?
Sure. Yeah, good question. I'm very discerning actually with who I take on as a client. We
Okay.
get quite a lot of people apply, and I'm quite honest with them if I feel that we're not the right fit for them. I mean, my agency, we're not, there are maybe a dozen or so agencies in London, let's say. And I think that there's sort of different rates and there's different kind of audiences for each. When I first started out, I wanted to be super high end, and
Yeah.
that was kind of from watching The Millionaire Matchmaker. You're like, oh yeah, I'd love to match up the millionaires. And of course, in my time as a matchmaker, I've worked with millionaires, even a billionaire, in fact, two billionaires. But it's more of a thing of the working professional people, our business entrepreneurs. So
Sure.
they need to be, in a good position. They need to be presentable, which is why I always meet them in person. And if they're not, I tell them straight, if they've got to change some things about their appearance, because ultimately, I'm not setting them up on a blind date. I'm putting their profile out there with a photo and stuff, and it's a representation of me. If they turn up on the date looking scruffy, it doesn't look good on me either. And then
Right, 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 right.
so
So a little
I,
grooming goes a long way for a man. So
yeah,
would I'm talking about, you would suggest that for a man if he's scruffy, or at least, hey, trim that beard, or
we've had women,
wear a dress shirt instead of a sweatshirt.
yeah, I mean, that's it. We have actually, as part of the matchmaking package, we have a session with a personal stylist. So that stylist actually works with them to go through their wardrobe and pick out, the outfits that they should keep, and then pick some of the outfits for the photo shoot and for future dates. So that's really nice. I used to go around the shop shopping with them, but I've got three small children now and I just don't have the energy. But
Yeah, I don't
so that's
blame you. I don't blame you.
yeah, I did most of my shopping online. As you can see, something came while I was here. So
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I do the same. So Siobhan, now so you have I guess the criteria of what both parties are looking for.
yes, yeah.
And then how do you start, let's say with the woman, right? She's looking for a certain type of guy, whatever. How do you start the matchmaking process? Do you look at the men's profiles that you have, and then somehow, some way connect them through email, or what? How is
Right.
that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So the process of sort of the matchmaking, we have a phone call first, and meet them in person. We then get them to fill in some forms. So there's sort of a series of a questionnaire. There's personality tests. We use the Myers-Briggs personality test as a good indicator of their personality type. We even look at their attachment style, which I mentioned earlier as well, whether they're secure, anxious, or avoidant. So that's quite insightful as well. There is a book actually called Attached, which goes into more of that, by I think the surname is Levine. It's actually on my shelf there, covered by a box at the moment. But yeah, so we do that, and then after we've got their profile and they've approved it and they're happy with the bio we've written up and the photos we've chosen, we have a private database so that no one can actually search this, only the matchmaking team. So we then start to look by, so as you mentioned, the criteria. So we make it quite clear in our contractual agreement with our clients, you're kind of allowed to pick of course, you're allowed to have your preferences, right?
Yeah.
And you're allowed to say, these are deal breakers. So for example, if you say, I cannot be with a smoker, then we are not going to introduce you to a smoker. That's for sure.
Yeah.
If your preference is a 6-foot guy, and we have an intuition and we have insight because we've spoken to this guy at length, and we just feel that you're like made for each other because you have the same values, and there's just your whole backstory is just somehow intertwined with each other, and it just feels like this is a really strong match.
Yeah.
Then, and if he's 5'8", we're still going to put him forward.
Oh, good for you. I appreciate that. That's good. No, good for you. Good for you.
Absolutely. You can't have the height as a deal breaker. I will not accept that. And I won't even accept the salary expectation as a deal breaker either.
Yeah,
You
because I
know,
know that's been out there now, definitely the height and the salary.
yeah, no, absolutely not. You know, because again, I think sometimes women do get a little insecure almost about, I have a client recently sort of saying, "Oh, I'm expecting to get a 10K pay rise. So therefore, I need to set the minimum for being more than that." And
Right.
I'm like, okay, there is an argument about hypergamy, and there's a whole community about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, I don't do transactional relationships. I don't do this sort of hypergamous sort of, I don't follow that, you
Right.
know. If I did, I'd be a hypocrite, because when I got with my partner, he certainly wasn't a huge high earner. So it for me, um, I think in the day and age we're in today as well, I don't think it even matters if the woman earns more. You know, men today don't have to just bring to the table their money, you know?
Right. But Siobhan, but can the woman accept a man not making as much? Because again, we see out there, and I'm pretty sure you have, they want the man to have the same level of income or a little bit more. Can a woman
But
accept a
just
man? Yeah, go ahead.
has to, honestly, I had a client a few years ago, and again, she was like, worked in IT consultant, had her own business, was doing very well. And when she came to me, she was looking for that powerful, on the board of directors, chairman type guy.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
was
yeah.
quite older, but she wanted that powerful man. And you know what? In the end, she ended up marrying an electrician, and I just thought that was a beautiful ending for her, because I was like, it just goes to show you didn't really need that corporate guy, you
Yeah.
know? And I always say to women, like, don't look down upon these like tradesmen, and these men that are hardworking, because most jobs don't pay over 100K,
Yeah.
So you're literally overlooking men who are going to be fantastic fathers, husbands. I look in the school playground, they're not all corporate men.
Right.
They're all different professions, but they're family men. And I say to women, if you want to be a mother and you want to have a family, what's important is he allows you to do your job, your career, and doesn't want to try to stop you from doing what you love. But as long as that man is hardworking, he's willing to get up every day and go to work and make an honest living, do not overlook that man. I say it to all of them.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, first of all, Siobhan, I want to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I could probably talk to you for another hour or two. Before I let you go, talk more about your website. So you have cupidinthecity.com and project143 .co. So talk more
Yeah.
about that.
So just in short, cupidinthecity.com is, the London-based agency. We have matched some people in New York actually as well. We've got some married.
Ah, okay.
So we collaborate with matchmakers worldwide as well. So sometimes, we do a bit of headhunting for them too. So you can find out about the services that we offer at cupidinthecity.com. Project 143 is my niche agency. So that's actually for Indian professional people
Ah,
who
okay.
have a bit more of a need perhaps to have more of a cultural match. So
Gotcha.
that's that one. And I have an Indian matchmaker who heads that up with me as well. So yeah,
Ah,
that's
sounds good.
a little dating empire.
No, no, nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Anything else you want to talk about or promote before I let you go?
No, I think that's great. If anyone wants to reach out, even I'm on Instagram, you can always send me a message on there if you've got any dating questions as well. I'm starting to do more online, content, and putting myself out there a bit more,
Oh,
because
okay.
it can be a bit scary, like recording all these videos and stuff. But lately I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it anyway.
No, no, you're natural. And if somebody want to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way is probably just to email me, Siobhan at cupidinthecity.com. It's spelled the Irish way, Siobhan.
All right, sounds good. Well, Siobhan, again, thank you so much for being on People Are Dating. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely Christmas.
You too. Bye bye.